Hi and welcome to the latest Steve's Amateur Garage video. Slightly different one today as we are going to be looking at the Ferrari 360 Spider. A little bit of a story coming up, and those of a nervous disposition may wish to tune to a different channel. Bear with me, here we go. We purchased the car probably about 6 years ago now, and it was the scruffiest Ferrari I had seen for a long time. You don't see many scruffy ones, so obviously we just bought it. 5 or 6 years later on, we've done a fair bit of remedial work. To call it restoration might be going a little bit too far. It wasn't that bad, it was structurally fine. We'd driven it for a year and it hadn't fallen apart, but there was clearly areas that could be improved, and that's what we've done over the last few years. And the real part of this story that I wish to tell is probably about 3 years ago, the first lockdown, when I certainly had some spare time to concentrate on the car for a period of time that we at that stage didn't know how long we were going to be furloughed for. As it turned out, it was a few months, but it gave me a good chance to really get into the car. And obviously the car had been sitting around for a couple of years in the garage. We moved it every month backwards and forwards. It always worked. When it came to furlough time, where I could actually get it across the garage to do some real work on it, it decided to jump out of gear. It has an F1 flappy paddle, and it's an early F1 gearbox, so this is where the story starts to go downhill slightly. And I left it, came back to it the next day, did its check, turned the key, and although it came up with the OK sign, it didn't even try and turn the engine over. It just, when you turn the key fully to actually start it, it just sort of dissipated the energy. You could hear it just going away. So now I had a car that didn't start and clearly had a gearbox problem. This is where the amateur mechanic sort of struggles, because he's coming to the end of his, or limit of his abilities, to actually even refill the gearbox and bleed it. You really need to plug it into a computer to be done properly. I haven't got that, so it was sort of time to realize that whatever I did to try and fix it, even if I did fix it, I couldn't bleed it and couldn't get it going properly. So we had to bite the bullet and find somebody who actually knew an awful lot more about these cars than we did at the time. Asking around the Ferrari community, everyone says you need to take it to Tony at Northwest Supercars. He is the man to fix this. And the answer is, he is the man to fix it, and it took some time and it took a lot of effort from Tony, and we are eternally grateful that he put that effort in, and finally, after a good few attempts, managed to sort the gearbox out. And for the good news, for the last couple of summers, it's worked beautifully. So that's good. We went down to the Ferrari Northwest Owners Club meeting just last weekend, and Tony was there. We chatted to him and everything was fine. He did ask how the car was going, and we said it's going great. Yeah. Driving home on what was really quite a warm day, we were not too far away from home, about 5 or 6 miles, just come off the motorway, and the accelerated first, second, third gear, and then it popped out of third gear. Just popped out of third gear for whatever reason, don't know, but it's never done that before. And obviously, if it was in a manual, you'd just find another gear, wouldn't you? It was a slightly disconcerting few moments while I flapped around, literally, and it found forth, and we carried on. Came through a small village, one-way system, and it was slow, and pulling up to the traffic lights, it clearly got confused as it was coming down from fourth to third, and then it just couldn't get down another gear and down, and couldn't find it, and eventually it stalled while in effectively third gear. This is now pretty disconcerting. You've got a queue of traffic, you're in a one-way system, and the car has stopped. It was a few what felt like minutes, it could have been 30-40 seconds. You obviously switch off, start again, see if that clears it. The car did actually start, which is great. It found neutral, which is great, and with a little bit of coaxing it found second gear. So we pulled away, apologised to the people we held up in the queue, and it was changing gear very laboured, very slowly, and on the way back the last 5 miles it would quite often just jump out of gear again, so disconcerting at the best. Luckily, by accident, I realised that if you press the down gear, whatever gear it had jumped out of, it tended to find fourth, and we limped ourselves home, just holding our breath that it would hang on. Parked it up, left it for 20 minutes, and then decided to drive it to the garage, and it worked beautifully. All gears, up and down, neutral. It just did what you asked it to do, and I got it back into the garage with a big sigh of relief. So that was lucky, but something's clearly not right. It could have been the temperature. It was really warm, but I suspect there's something wrong. We hope it's a simple cure, and I'm about to hopefully investigate with you and try and find out what has gone wrong. In the back of the mind you're thinking this could be bad. But I'm going to get changed, get the cover off, and we'll see what we find. First step, we've removed the small engine bay cover to reveal the F1 hydraulic system, which seems to be nice and dry. Having looked underneath the car, we can see there's clearly a couple of little pools of fluid that have dried off there, but this car's normally pretty dry. It doesn't normally drop any fluid whatsoever, so that's strange. And if we have a look down the side of the engine here, we can see the under tray, and that's clearly got some sort of fluid residue there. So I think there's been a pool of fluid there at one stage. So the next step would be to check the reservoir itself and see whether there's any fluid left in it. The answer to that question is yes, there is fluid in there. It's about half full, the reservoir, and I know it's cold. I haven't started it up or tried to pull any through or change gears yet. That will be the next step, but clearly there is fluid in there to a reasonable level. I'm going to start it up and see if it will change gear. Okay, not sure whether I actually captured what happened when I first tried to start the car. Car started beautifully, as it does every time. Into first, into second, and then jumped straight back to neutral. Into reverse, which fine, up into first, second, and then it wanted to go back into neutral. Clearly it's not happy, something is amiss. So warmed it up for a little bit, and we've still got probably half a reservoir of fluid, so I think the fluid has a reasonable amount in, but clearly this time we have a new situation of the leak that's coming from somewhere down there. So the next stage will be to remove that engine under shield and have a good look around there and try and identify where that leak is coming from. Stay tuned. So here we have the main undershield from the bottom of the car on the garage floor. This is its first inspection since I've removed it. A couple of things that are interesting. Seems to be one sort of distinct pool here, and this is very thick oil, like gearbox oil, and there's distinctly some sort of other leak going on there which looks like thinner stuff, and I'm not sure what that blob is there, but we'll have a look underneath. And as for that, well, that accounts for one of the rattles, no doubt. Okay, here we are underneath the 360 with the undershield removed, and as you can see we have a little blob of reddish fluid there. Clearly it's just seeped across there, and that is almost directly underneath what is probably the prime suspect of the little hydraulic joiner block there. Fairly common weak points. That's possibly the original block, 20 odd years old, and clearly you can see something going on there. So my thought would be replace that with the upgraded Hills block and see if that cures the issue. So here's the new replacement upgraded aluminium block from Hill Engineering for the side of the gearbox. There's the code if anyone ever needs it, and as usual when you look at the one that's already on, the one that's on is completely flat. It doesn't have this bit sticking out here. I'm sure this is actually the original shape, but obviously the one that's on has probably been replaced at some time in the past. Hopefully it'll all fit. Okay guys, just an update on the hydraulic block from the side of the Ferrari 360 gearbox. This is the old one. It was leaking quite profusely. Had a false start with the replacement Hills Engineering block. I thought this bleed nipple would fit straight into it. Wrong. Had to order the correct bleed nipple to fit the Hills one, which it does say when you purchase it, it needs a certain bleed nipple. I had to order it from Italy. It arrived in 3 weeks later, so slight delay. But yeah, the new bleed nipple fitted beautifully, and I have just swapped the block over. The new one has fitted nicely, it's not leaking, and the car goes into all the gears and drives nicely. So in this case, we're job done. And just a final tip, before I undid fully all the connections, I sort of overfilled the fluid reservoir, knowing that as soon as you undid the big connection and the two smaller ones on this side, the fluid would start to pour out. Just caught it in a container underneath, but swapped it over as soon as I could, got this big one in first, then the two sort of fixed lines that go that side, and finally put the bolt through the middle to fix it into place. But did it fairly quickly before the fluid ran out from the reservoir. Sealed it all back up again, topped the reservoir up to its level, about 1/3 up the reservoir is about right, and that seems to have worked without having to go through any bleeding process, which was a bit of a bonus. Here we are underneath the Ferrari. There's the replacement hydraulic block all connected up, and we've basically turned the ignition on, put your foot on the brake and run it up through the gears. It went straight up to 6th and straight back down again into neutral and into reverse and back into neutral. So I took it for a spin, a nice 15-minute trip around, warmed it up, went into all the gears, ran beautifully, went into automatic and worked as well. So I think we're all good. Hi, thanks very much for watching the video right to the end. And just a little update, we ran the car probably 3 or 4 times on nice short trips after replacing the aluminium block, and the first time the gearbox warning light would just flash on momentarily as we changed sort of from 2nd to 3rd gear. It always changed gear 100% of the time. The next time we took the car out, it did it less, and the next time after that it hardly did it at all, and the 4th time the light never came on at all. So we're all good. I think we got away with that one. Thanks very much for watching. If you found it helpful and enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and hit the notification button. I've got plenty more exciting videos coming soon, both on the Ferrari, the VW camper van and the MG. You all take care. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.